In a world where your magic rank is decided the moment you are born, the strong rule and the weak are told to bury their dreams. Talent is everything here, and those born without it are expected to quietly step aside. Ikki Kurigane sits at the very bottom of that ladder, a rank F student the whole academy sneers at as the worst one. In this world, special people called Blazers can turn their own soul into a weapon, and the best of them become elite magical knights. But Ikki was born with almost no magic at all, barely a tenth of what an ordinary student carries. So while gifted knights are praised and promoted, he is written off as a failure who never should have enrolled. Everything changes the day he walks into his dorm room and finds a girl there, changing her clothes. That girl is Stella Vermilion, second princess of the Vermilion Empire and a rank A prodigy the world calls the Crimson Princess. She entered Haikyuu Academy with the highest entrance score in its history, and she is furious to learn she has been assigned to room with its weakest student. Their argument keeps escalating until the academy director steps in with a very old-fashioned solution. The two of them will settle it with a duel, and the loser must obey the winner for the rest of their life. Stella accepts on the spot, certain that a rank F reject could never lay a blade on her. On the field, she summons her flaming sword, Leviathan, and unleashes a blast of fire hot enough to melt steel. But Ikki does not panic. He reads the rhythm of her movements, slips past the flames, and closes the distance. His true weapon was never magic. It is the skill he ground out alone, year after year, because no one would ever teach him. While the gifted student slept, he swung his blade 10,000 times in the dark. With a technique he calls blade steel, he copies an opponent's swordsmanship simply by watching them fight. Then he ignites his own secret art, Ito Shura, pouring every drop of his life force into one single minute of impossible speed. For a mediocre man to defeat a genius, he says, he has to be willing to become a demon. In one blinding exchange, the worst one cuts down the Crimson Princess. For the first time in her entire life, Stella has lost. Afterward, the director reveals the secret behind Ikki's rank. His weakness is a lie. The ranking system only measures raw magic, never the swordsmanship that makes him deadly, and his powerful family rigged it to keep him buried. Stella is ashamed, realizing she judged him exactly the way the world once judged her for being a prodigy. She too had crossed the ocean to escape a home that locked her inside the cage of her own genius. She honors the bet and declares herself his servant, but Ikki's only command is for her to simply stay by his side. From that night on, the genius and the failure become roommates, training partners, and rivals. Ikki's goal is simple to say and almost impossible to reach. He must win the National 7-Star Battle Festival. It is the one and only way a rank F student will ever be allowed to graduate as a true knight. And for the first time, he is no longer chasing that dream completely alone. The next morning, Stella runs at his side through his brutal training, refusing to let the weakest student outwork her. Today is also the day his younger sister enrolls at Haikyuu, a sister he has not seen in 4 long years. At school, the students learn the rules have changed. The Academy's festival representatives will now be chosen through real combat matches. Only the top winners earn a place, which means Ikki must fight his way through every challenger just to qualify. A single loss can end the road for good, so every match becomes do or die. Then his sister arrives, Shizuku Kurigane, ranked the second strongest freshman in the entire school. In front of a stunned crowd, she kisses Ikki full on the lips and openly declares her obsessive love for her brother. She coldly brushes Stella aside as an outsider with no right to stand near him. The two girls nearly draw their weapons on each other before the director shuts the fight down. But Shizuku lets something slip that leaves Stella shaken. Their family treated Ikki as if he never even existed. Alone with him later, Stella gently asks for the truth, and Ikki finally tells her his story. Born without a shred of talent into the elite Kurigane family, he was erased, denied a seat at the table and a place at every family gathering. One freezing New Year's night, lost and ready to give up on everything, the broken boy crossed paths with his grandfather, Ryoma Kurigane. Ryoma was a legendary war hero, and the words he gave that night saved Ikki's life. Hold on to the frustration of being the weakest, he said, because that pain is proof you have not yet given up on yourself. People reach the moon without wings, he told him, so a boy with enough will could still become anything. From that day forward, Icky swore to become a man strong enough to one day say those same words to someone else. That is why he trains alone against a family so cruel they even pressured the school to block him from graduating. Hearing all of it, Stella vows that she will never abandon her own dream either, no matter the cost. The princess and the reject grow closer, bound now by the same stubborn refusal to ever quit. Around the same time, Shizuku admits she came to hate their family for how they treated her brother. She quietly promises to give Icky all the love their parents never once offered him. A few days later, Icky takes Stella, Shizuku, and his sharp-eyed friend Alice out to a shopping mall. For a moment it feels like an ordinary, peaceful day for kids who rarely get one. Then armed criminals seize the entire mall, taking the shoppers hostage and demanding a massive ransom. These are rogue blazers, and their real goal is not money but the thrill of terrorizing the helpless. When a frightened boy throws his ice cream to defend his mother, the criminals decide to make an example of them. That is when Stella refuses to stay hidden any longer. She steps out, shrugs off their gunfire with her flames, and demands to face whoever is in charge. Their leader is Bisho, a smiling sadist who twists the words crime and punishment to justify his cruelty. Stella hurls a full-power flame strike to stop him from executing the mother, but it is a trap. His device, the Judgment Ring, absorbs any attack thrown at him and fires it straight back, twice as strong. Every blow she lands only feeds the weapon that is about to destroy her. Bisho blasts her with her own attack, then offers to spare the hostages only if she debases herself before him. Watching from the shadows, Icky and Alice are forced to wait for the one opening that can end this in a single move. Alice strikes first, pinning Bisho in place by binding his very shadow to the ground. Shizuku raises a towering wall of water to shield the hostages from the panicking gunmen. Then Icky steps in, ignites Ito Shura, and understands at once that anything entering Bisho's hand is simply erased. So he moves faster than Bisho's eyes can even track, striking before the Judgment Ring can absorb a thing. In an instant, the sadist who tortured Stella is on the ground, and every hostage is saved. But as Icky collapses from the strain, a new figure casually finishes off the last criminal. It is Shizuya Kirihara, last year's Academy representative, a powerful knight dripping with arrogance. He sneers that he must lend a hand to the weak, mocking Icky's miserable power right to his face. Then he reveals the cruelest twist of all. Icky's very first selection match will be against him. He calls Icky a coward who once ran from their fight, and dares him not to run away again this time. On the day of the matches, Stella crushes her own opponent so fast he simply forfeits. Icky, meanwhile, studies footage of Kirihara's ability, a perfect stealth that hides his sight, his sound, and his scent. We learn the truth of last year. Kirihara had beaten Icky badly while Icky refused to even draw his sword. He took that beating on purpose, so the school could never brand him the aggressor and expel him. Now their rematch begins, and Kirihara vanishes completely from sight. At first, Icky tracks him by reading the path of his fired arrows, pinning his location from thin air. But Kirihara reveals an upgrade. This year, even his arrows are invisible, striking from nowhere. He calls out each target before he hits it, peppering Icky while the crowd jeers the helpless worst one. Kirihara even spits Icky's secret to the whole arena, that he must win the festival or never graduate at all. For a moment, Icky freezes, his old wound of being mocked threatening to swallow him whole. Then Stella's voice cuts through the arena, screaming at the crowd not to dare insult her favorite knight. She refuses to let him look pathetic, demanding the man she admires keep his head held high. Her words snap him back, and Icky realizes his mistake. He was trying to fight an invisible enemy with his eyes. So he stops looking, and instead reads Kirihara through the order of his strikes, the depth of each wound, and the tone of his voice. He locates a foe he cannot see at all, a feat the stunned commentators name his perfect vision. With his enemy finally pinned, Icky declares he will meet Kirihara's strongest with his own. He unleashes Million Rain, and the arrogant rival who never lost is left flat on the ground, beaten. The boy who could not even attend class last year has just won his very first official match. The arena that came to laugh at a reject is forced to watch the impossible unfold. In the quiet afterward, he finally says the words out loud. He likes Stella, and he is so glad he met her. She tells him to close his eyes, kisses him, and admits she feels exactly the same. They make a promise to climb to the very top of knighthood together, and one day to face each other in the final. With Kirihara behind him, Ikki keeps winning, sweeping match after match until his record stands at 5-0. The school that called him the worst one now whispers a new name. Another one. The uncrowned Sword King. He even begins teaching the very students who once looked down on him, sharing the methods he built from nothing. Even his own sister begs to learn from him, turning her back on the family masters who cast him out. When a group of jealous upperclassmen ambush him, he defeats them so easily that they beg to become his students instead. But all this attention leaves Stella quietly insecure about where she really stands with him. The truth comes out at the pool, when she asks why he will train everyone except her. Ikki gently explains that he will not teach her because she has already surpassed him, and he wants her to keep climbing beyond his imagination. It is a kind of respect no one has ever shown her before. Still, a tangle of nerves and silence between the two lovers swells into a painful misunderstanding. Each one fears the other wants to walk away, until the argument finally bursts into the open. They shout the truth at each other, that each likes the other far too much to ever let go. Realizing the whole fight was built on nothing, they agree to say their real wish at the same moment. Both of them say the same thing, that they want to kiss, and so they finally do. For the lonely swordsman who grew up unloved, it is a moment he never believed he would have. With their hearts settled, the next round of opponents is announced, the powerful student council. Ikki tears through the council's executives without missing a beat, extending his undefeated streak. He brings down their accelerating runner and their crushing destroyer, proving again that skill answers any trick. But his next challenge will not come from an enemy. It will come from a girl who has been secretly following him for a week. She is Ayase Ayatsuji, a painfully shy third-year too nervous to even look a boy in the eye. Ikki recognizes her name at once. She is the daughter of Kaido Ayatsuji, the legendary last samurai. Her father was a swordsman with no magic at all who still conquered every tournament he ever entered. But that same father now lies broken in a hospital bed, ruined by a match that went too far. Ayase confesses she has been stuck in a slump, desperate for guidance she was too afraid to ask for. Ikki agrees to train her, and he sees her flaw instantly. She is trapped trying to copy her father's exact style. He warns her that fixing it means she can never go back to the old way, and she has to choose. Determined to grow stronger, she accepts, and he corrects her form down to the last millimeter. The change is immediate and dramatic, and Ayase looks at Ikki like he has handed her a miracle. She admits his rough, dedicated hands remind her of her father's, and that warms something in her lonely heart. Through it all, Ikki takes Stella's hand and reassures her that the only person he likes is her. But a darker thread runs beneath Ayase's words, a quiet vow to take back something that was stolen from her. That shadow has a name, Kurado Kurashiki, a brutal ace known as the Sword Eater. He strolls up, fakes an apology, then sucker punches Ikki in the head and dares him to fight back. Ikki takes the blow and keeps smiling, refusing to retaliate, because drawing his device here would get him expelled. Kurado laughs him off as a gutless weakling and walks away, leaving Stella shaking with rage. The student council confirms the danger. This man placed in the nation's top 8 last year. And slowly it becomes clear that the Sword Eater is the very man who shattered Ayase's father and stole her family's pride. Then the cruelest piece falls into place. Ikki's next selection match opponent is Ayase herself. Alice works out the terrible logic. If Ayase must win every match to reach the festival, she cannot afford to beat Ikki fairly, which means she will make her move before the match, in the dark, where no one is watching. Right on cue, a message arrives, signed by Ayase, begging Ikki to meet her alone on a rooftop at 3 in the morning. Alice warns him plainly that it is almost certainly a trap, but Ikki refuses to believe the worst of a girl who loved his hands and the memory of her father. He decides to go, steady and unshaken, because he made a promise to Stella that he intends to keep. And so, under the cover of night, the worst one walks. Last time, Ikki walked straight into a trap, and now we finally learn why his own opponent said it. Ayase Ayatsuji, the shy swordswoman he had been training, lured him to that rooftop to force a fight in the dead of night. She knew his ultimate technique, Ito Shura, can only be used once a day, so she made him burn it the night before their official match. With his strongest weapon spent, she is certain she can finally beat him and claim her place in the festival. She summons her own blade and turns ice cold, declaring that she is the one who will win. Drained and barely standing, Icky asks why she would throw away her pride and disgrace her family's sword just for a cheap win. She refuses to explain, insisting only that she has to win, no matter what it costs her. The next morning, Icky wakes in the infirmary, and his teacher finally tells him Ia's story. 2 years ago, her father, Kaido Ayatsuji, was a legendary swordsman with no magic at all, known across the country as the Last Samurai. Then a brutal blazer named Kurado Karashiki, the Sword Eater, challenged his school and crushed him. By the terms of that duel, the Ayatsuji family lost everything, their land and their dojo, and Kaido has lain unconscious ever since. Reaching the 7-Star Festival is Ia's only path to face the Sword Eater and take it all back, so she swore to win by any means. Her father once taught her to value her pride and protect the weak, but she has buried that lesson beneath her desperation. Understanding her pain, Icky makes a quiet request before the match instead of simply exposing her cheating. When their duel begins, invisible whirlwinds tear at him from out of nowhere. Iace has secretly carved hundreds of hidden cuts into the arena, and her weapon can rip any of them open into a slashing gale. Worse, her blade can reopen wounds she has already given him, turning a single scratch into something deadly. Planting traps before a match breaks every rule, and exposing it would hand Icky an instant victory. But he refuses the easy win, because he had asked his teacher to overlook her cheating on purpose. He does not want a hollow victory by default. He wants to reach the real heart she has been hiding. He still believes there is honor buried somewhere inside the girl he taught. It is a rare bout, a swordsman against a swordswoman, and a teacher against the very student he once trained. Icky tells her that her steps and her breathing are all out of order, because a sword without pride can never move true. She screams that pride is worthless to the loser, that ideals which bring no results are meaningless. So he charges in with nothing but flesh, blood, and skill, and unleashes his 4th secret sword. At the last instant, he turns his blade intangible, passing through her not to cut her, but to drain her strength away. His goal was never to defeat her, but to strip away the lie and force her to face herself. It is the cruelest kindness, a defeat without a single drop of humiliation. Emptied of everything, Iace finally breaks, admitting she was only ever deceiving herself, and concedes the match. Icky tells her she never truly abandoned her father's sword, and that loyalty is her real strength. Weeping, she confesses she only ever wanted to become a cool swordswoman like her dad, and asks him for help. And that, he says, is exactly what he wanted to hear. To make good on that promise, Icky goes straight to the man who destroyed her family. He strides into the dojo the Sword Eater stole and challenges him to a duel to win it all back. Because it is an accredited school challenge, the duel is fully legal, and the Sword Eater gladly accepts. Kurado Karashiki is a monster who hunts and destroys sword schools purely for the thrill of it. 2 years ago, he beat the Last Samurai without even drawing his weapon, through raw skill alone. He recognizes Icky's blade as a first-class weapon and laughs with delight at the promise of a real fight. For 2 stolen years, the proud Ayatsuji name has gathered dust, and Icky means to give it all back tonight. Now he summons his own weapon, a living serpent blade that devours the very space between fighters. Its reach keeps shifting, so Icky can never find a safe distance to stand and breathe. Then a strike simply vanishes in the middle of its swing, nearly killing him, and Icky uncovers the Sword Eater's true secret. His reflexes are inhumanly fast, faster than any trained knight alive, letting him act 2 or 3 times for every move Icky makes. It is not a technique that can be learned or countered. It is something he was simply born with. It is the foundation of everything that makes the Sword Eater unbeatable. He escalates into a storm of double, triple, and quadruple strikes that Icky cannot fully block. Watching her friend bleed, Iace aches to stop it, until she notices something that changes everything. The Sword Eater is smiling, because more than anything in the world, he loves a battle against a worthy opponent. And she realizes her father must have felt that same joy, that his final duel was never the shame she imagined. His dying apology was not regret at losing, but sorrow that he could not see the heart of the man he fought. With that, the broken image of the last samurai is finally healed in her mind. The Sword Eater's monstrous speed devours his own stamina, and at last he begins to tire. He launches his ultimate strike, fully expecting Ikki to dodge the way he always has. Instead, Ikki stands his ground and answers with the secret art of the Ayatsuji school itself. He had copied it by sight alone, the very technique Ayase memorized down to the last inch from her father. The forbidden sword strikes home, and the unbeatable Sword Eater finally falls. Impressed to his core, he abandons the stolen dojo and promises to settle things with Ikki at the festival. Ikki tells Ayase the win was only possible because she carried her father's sword perfectly in her heart. No one understands the last samurai more than her, which makes her his one true successor. She confesses her cheating to the committee and accepts her punishment, but the long ordeal ends on a miracle. After 2 silent years, her father finally opens his eyes. The family the Sword Eater shattered is whole again, and Ayase has her hero back at last. With the arc behind them, the Academy rewards its strongest first years with a trip to a mountain retreat. Stella is overjoyed to finally have Ikki almost to herself, dreaming of a quiet getaway. But this is no private vacation, and the trip soon turns far more crowded and dangerous than they hoped. Back home, his sister Shizuku is summoned by their father, the cold and ruthless head of the Kurigane family. He admits he lured her home with a forged letter and praises her flawless record, yet cannot say one proud word about Ikki. The moment her brother's name comes up, the man falls completely silent. Disgusted, she storms out, refusing to forgive a father who pretends her brother does not even exist. It is the same cold cruelty that drove Ikki out of the family years ago. In the mountains, Ikki notices Stella is pale and weak, and realizes she has caught her very first cold. Sheltering from the rain, she nervously asks if he wants to take their relationship further. Gently, he refuses, saying he wants to be proud enough of their love to face both their families one day. Moved by his sincerity, she lets it go, and the bond between them only grows stronger. Then the quiet shatters when a massive stone golem smashes through the wall of the lodge. Ikki fights it off, but an unseen enemy is controlling it with invisible strings from kilometers away. The student council arrives just in time, and their president cuts the threat down with a single bolt of lightning. She is Tokatadu, called Raikiri, the strongest knight in the entire academy and a national finalist the year before. A shadowy mastermind watches it all from afar, amused, already plotting his next move. These stone puppets are only the opening move of an enemy still hidden in the dark. And the council brings fresh news. Shizuku's next opponent will be Tokatadu herself. Shizuku has spent her whole life following the one brother who always stood up for what was right. Now she is determined to prove she is strong enough to stand beside him at the very top. If she cannot prove herself here, she fears she will never deserve to walk at his side. So she steps into the arena against the Academy's reigning champion to earn her place. Toka's lightning should be lethal, but Shizuku's ultra-pure water carries no current, so it cannot shock her. The two trade blows in a stunning long-range duel that leaves the entire crowd breathless. Shizuku defends, binds, and attacks all at once, matching the president move for move. The freshman everyone underestimated is trading blows with the Academy's very best as an equal. Then, without warning, she starts to miss, swinging at empty air as Toka slips closer and closer. Ikki recognizes the trick at once, a rare art that erases its user from the opponent's very mind. By hiding beneath Shizuku's awareness, Toka becomes impossible to see even in plain sight. It is the hidden weapon that has already toppled a national champion. To break it, Shizuku abandons her defense and floods the arena with a blinding fog only she can navigate. She forms a blade of pure water and gambles everything on one perfect ambush. But Toka answers with Raikiri, a single stroke of lightning that cuts clean through the attack. Shizuku falls, defeated, her dream of reaching the festival ended. Ikki sees the truth, that her final move was no reckless gamble but the best chance she ever had. His little sister did not lose because she was weak, but because she faced someone simply stronger. Alone in the infirmary at last, she finally lets her tears fall. And in the shadows, the hidden enemy notes her defeat and quietly prepares to strike again. With the festival drawing near, the people who want Ichigan finally make their move. A tabloid prints a stolen photo of him kissing Stella, branding their love a forbidden scandal. Because Stella is foreign royalty, the press explodes, painting the worst student in school as a villain. The man behind it is Mamoru Akaza, a Kurigane relative on the ethics committee who hates Ikki with a passion. Strangely, the Academy's champion Toka turns out to be the kindest of souls, a hero who fights for orphaned and broken children to prove the weak can rise. Watching her, Ikki cannot help but wonder what his own source of strength could possibly be. Akaza drags Ikki into custody for a so-called hearing, twisting an honest relationship into a crime. Locked away and denied sleep, Ikki is paraded through match after match designed to make him crack. Every newspaper in the country has been turned into a weapon against him. The whole world is being told that the rank F reject seduced a princess and disgraced his school. Still he keeps winning, refusing to let them break him or smear what he and Stella share. But the relentless pressure nearly crushes Stella, until she wonders aloud whether she should leave him for his own sake. Shizuku slaps the doubt right out of her, reminding her that Ikki endures all of this so he can be proud of loving her. Stella snaps back to herself, blasts her way into the Federation building, and vows to keep winning at his side. Worn down to nothing, Ikki finally demands the one thing he has always wanted, to face his father directly. He asks if winning the 7-Star Festival would, at long last, make the man acknowledge him. His father's answer destroys him. He says a talentless son who achieves anything only gives false hope to other weaklings and burdens the world. He orders Ikki to do nothing at all, because someone who can do nothing should never even try. And Ikki realizes the unbearable truth that his father never hated him. He simply felt nothing for him from the very start. The bond he spent his whole life chasing was broken before it ever began. The boy who only ever wanted his father to look at him is left with nothing at all to hold on to. Then Akaza delivers the killing blow, a public match against Toka to do with everything on the line. If Ikki loses, he must give up ever becoming a knight, forever. On the morning of the rigged match, the entire nation tunes in to watch the worst one fall. The Federation has forced the duel onto live television, certain it will finally expose him as a fraud. But Ikki almost does not come at all, lost in the dark and haunted by his father's words. A cruel voice inside whispers that his worthless, unwanted sword can never beat the Lightning Princess. Then his friends, his classmates, and his sister remind him that the Academy is the one place he ever truly smiled. And Stella arrives with the words that save him, that she won her own match, exactly as they promised. She fought through her own brutal gauntlet just to stand beside him for this one fight. Their vow reignites, to climb together to the very top, and Ikki shakes off his despair. He walks into the arena battered and exhausted to face the strongest knight in the school. Toka confesses that she has wanted to fight him from the very first moment she laid eyes on him. Ikki swears he will not show a shameful battle to her, or to the people now cheering his name. The instant the match begins, he ignites Ito Shura and pours everything into a single strike. Toka intends to dodge his one desperate swing and win on pure movement alone. She draws her greatest secret sword and calls down Raikiri, a blade of living lightning. It is the same strike that crushed his sister, the strongest sword in the entire school. Ikki forces an entire minute of power into one descending cut, sharpening his very soul to its limit. The two strongest blows in the whole academy collide in a single, blinding instant. When the light fades, the champion's lightning lies shattered, and Ikki is the one still standing. He did not merely reach his limit. He expanded it at the final second, becoming something beyond a demon. The old masters in the stands understand what they are witnessing, a feat that should be impossible. One of them sees in Ikki the shadow of a legendary warrior the world believed it had lost. With one sword, the boy they called the worst one has cut down every lie ever told about him. Akaza shrieks in denial and tries to brand him a failed knight one last time. Ikki snarls at him to get out of the way, and then collapses, with only one thing left to say. Cradled in Stella's arms, he admits how foolish he has been, and she tells him that is exactly why she loves him. Then, in front of the entire country, he asks her to become his family. Stella accepts without hesitation and promises to be his bride. The announcer can barely speak as a marriage proposal airs live across the nation. The fallout is swift, as Stella's father, the emperor, publicly shames the adults who dragged children into their schemes. Akaza is thrown out in disgrace, and every false charge against Ikki simply vanishes. The 6 representatives for the 7-star festival are named, and the rank F failure stands proudly among them. Toka hands Ikki the school flag and names him the leader of the entire team. To win now, she tells him, is to carry the hopes of everyone who fell along the way. The boy once mocked as the worst one promises to carry them all the way to the top. The lonely failure who once trained alone in the dark now leads the strongest of them into battle. For the first time,